my people, how you doing? Hope you're having a fantastic damn day. Welcome back to the channel. Now, of course, it is the end of the year. It's the final day of 2023, and it's been a fantastic year for yours truly and the channel. Of course, it's been amazing. So mad love to all of you guys who have supported, have grown with the channel. It's been absolutely sensational, and hopefully, just hopefully, 2024 can be even bigger and better. So we will be obviously producing content and everything of that caliber and sort throughout the course of 2024. So stay tuned for that. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe. But today, something slightly different. It's still going to be a tactics video, but it's the career mode tactics. I'll be showing you what we've used throughout the course of season number 3. Of course, we have drastically changed from last season, the first season, of course, the tactics. But I think these set of tactics you guys would actually enjoy using and maybe adapting to your game. So let me know down below what you guys would rate my personal tactics out of, and let me know down below if you would use them. So you know what, we're going to show you guys the West Brom career mode tactics. So starting off with the formation, I've gone with the 4-1-4-1 system. I've made no real changes to it. I mean, you could say I've brought the fullbacks in a bit more narrow to have them invert a bit more. But again, it's 1 goalkeeper, 2 centre-backs, 2 fullbacks, 1 DM, 2 central midfielders, 2 wider midfielders, and then of course 1 striker. Let's go Sanko. So for the tactical vision, yours truly, Brom squad. We're not talking about Jurgen Klopp or Pep Guardiola or Ten Hag, or we're talking about me. And that's quite nice. But basically, I wanted to implement a very strong, aggressive style of pressing, and I think it translates quite well to the Premier League itself. So gegenpressing, we've used it throughout the entirety of this career, making sure that we are pressing from the front, pressing the goalkeeper, pressing the back line of the opposition, making sure that they're very uneasy and can't set up and structure their offensive build-up from the back to front. And it does tend to create a few turnover opportunities and a few goal-scoring opportunities for us when we, turn the ball over and progress it forward. As for the defense and the defensive style, obviously it goes hand in hand with gegenpressing, pressing after possession loss. So we do try and look after the ball as much as possible, especially with these systems that we will be showing you. But again, once you turn that ball over, you want to have a very strong counter press implemented, and of course the likes of Sanko and Maja, who lead from the front more times than not, are very good at closing down the opposition, passing angles and lanes, making sure that they're getting in the way. As well as your wider players, they are also and are required to be very good with the defensive work rates that they do need to possess. As for the team width, I've gone with a somewhat compact 35 system. It has led to a few goal-scoring efforts from those wider areas of the field when those crosses have been whipped in. But nonetheless, I'm quite happy to live and die by that. Try and beat me in the air as best as you can. More times than not, we're very good at it, but more times than not, or sometimes I should say, the opposition have been a bit witty and more or less outsmarted us with their crosses into the box. As for the depth, of course, it's high line for life, looking like Ange Postecoglou reincarnated, but I've gone with an 85 depth, and of course that does help in possession, especially against the lesser teams. Of course, to be honest, we're in season 3 and it's our first season in the Prem, so we are considered a lesser team, but we've been able to batter the likes of Leeds and so on. So against teams like that, we can definitely look to show our style of football, be very aggressive with a look to try and pin the opposition back in their own half, and just assert ourselves offensively on the game. But again, I do tend to just shift it ever so slightly when I play the bigger teams, maybe a Man City for example. I'll just drop it ever so slightly down to a 65, so the good stuff. Now moving on to the offense, the build-up play, I've gone with fast build-up. Now of course it does go hand in hand with the likes of gegenpressing, but you do want to try and incorporate that with your side when you are progressing the ball forward. Of course, you want your fullbacks to be as involved, whether they're inverting or whether they're overlapping and creating width. You want them to be very quick and high up the field, adding to the attacking play, as well as having your front line trying to get in behind, trying to exploit and expose the opposition more times, not with those runs in behind their back line. And then finally, for the chance creation, I've gone with direct passing. This does allow for the likes of Sanko or Kuto or whoever you have in your front line to make those runs and trying to expose the opposition with it. But also, it does open up a bit more space between the lines for your midfield to try and work with. It opens up a bit more space for them to have a bit more time and space on the ball. And it just allows you to be a bit more creative with your passing. And it allows you for a few more opportunities throughout the course of games. I do like direct passing. Personally, it is probably my favorite chance creation tactic to use. I don't mind possession. I really don't. But I think direct passing, if you're wanting to score lots of goals, I think direct passing is the best angle to approach it at. And then with the width, it's set to 70 now. Of course, we do try and open up a bit more space more centrally for your midfield to try and work with. But at the same time, you want to try and generate a lot of your attacks down your left or your right channel. And we try and attack with this set of tactics. I try and attack with my wingers more than my fullbacks. Of course, the likes of Connor Bradley, he has gotten quite a few assists throughout the course of these last 3 seasons or so. But it's mainly your wingers that will hold the width. So you want to try and have them in the wider spaces, in the open space in certain moments. And then what that essentially does is it also opens up a bit more space for your forwards as well as your midfield. So for the players in the box, I've set it to 7 now. With a lot of my tactics, I think 7 is probably the best to go with. It just allows a bit more dynamism. You can have an extra man sometimes in and around that area, and it does create a bit of confusion for the opposition. So more times than not, it will be your front 3 with the addition of a potential midfielder. For most of it, it's been Matt O'Reilly. He has been fantastic for us. All the likes of Cullen, they alternate between the two, whether the one's making the run into the box, the other one's hanging up on the edge of the area, looking to try and facilitate, rotate possession. But you do want to try and incorporate as many bodies in the box without breaking your structure. So if you do turn the ball over from across, you aren't immediately exposed. So I think 7 is probably the best to go with. It's a nice balance. It offers a bit more of an attacking variety. It also offers a bit more defensive solidarity. I don't know. But yes, it does do a very, very good job. It's very effective. That's what I'm trying to say. As for the corners and the free kicks, as per always, I've set it to 4. Now moving on to the instructions, we'll start off at the back with Freddie Woodman. He has been absolutely amazing. Probably my best signing over the last 2 seasons at least. He has been incredible. A breath of fresh air compared to the likes of Palmer, Alex Palmer. He was great. Not really. But Freddie Woodman, these are the instructions I've gone with for him. Come for crosses and be a sweeper keeper. Of course, we are playing a very high line. You need a sweeper keeper that can be very integrated into the offensive build-up play. I think he's pretty damn decent with the ball at his feet, passing out from the back, passing into the good spaces, potentially starting counter-attacking opportunities with his kicking out from the back. Of course, come for crosses is essential, looking to try and claim those aerial balls. He's not the tallest of goalkeepers. I think he's 6'1" or 2. But you want your goalkeeper to be aggressive more times than not. And I think it shows the signs of a very good goalkeeper when they're fearless, when they just, charge out, claim the ball, alleviate the stress on the back line. And more times than not, I must say in this career mode, Freddie Woodman has saved my ass. Into your backline now, we've got the likes of Ballard and Branthwaite, a fantastic dynamic duo if you ask me, but I haven't really changed much for them. They are both set to their base set of instructions, and then we'll move out to our fullbacks now. So obviously Lloyd Kelly, it's the first season we're actually trying him out in this fullback role after the end of last season, where we played him in those last 3 games as that fullback. I thought he was quite good. So we are in the process of converting him into a left back, and he is obviously left-footed, which suits us quite well. We've had a few issues with our left backs in the past, but Lloyd Kelly is proving to be the vital cog in this massive West Brom machine. So for him, and specifically only for him, we've told him to join the attack. Yes, you want your fullbacks attacking as much as possible. This is a very replicated Jurgen Klopp alternated system where you want your fullbacks involved in the attacking outlet as much as possible. But this time for his run type, I want him to invert. So join up with the midfield, link up a bit more with Sosa or O'Reilly in certain areas, and try and just add an extra body into the midfield more times on. And he's very, very effective with his passing out from the back as well, which is also why I essentially bought him as that left-sided centre-back. But now we've got Branthwaite, so Lloyd Kelly, he's been shifted. And then for the defensive positioning, I've him set to step up. You want him to be a bit more aggressive, of course, naturally more of a centre-back, so he has a bit more of a defensive awareness to him, and you want him to try and assert that on the opposition whenever they throw men forward down this left-hand channel. Onto your right back now, of course, Connor Bradley, our first ever signing for the West Brom career mode. Fantastic. So he is more of a natural fullback, out and out attacking, overlapping, making sure he's providing space and pace down the right-hand channel. So he'll be also told, join the attack, but this time the run type is set to overlap, like I say, providing a lot of the width down the right-hand side, whipping in crosses, providing a bit more of flair down the right-hand side, you could say. And then for his defensive positioning, I have him set to sticks position. So unlike Kelly, you want him to just to hold down the right-hand side, not do too much or be too aggressive with it. and just show himself a bit more of a calmer head, you could say. So now moving on into our midfield, of course, you've got the likes of Vinicius Sosa. He's set to cut past lanes and stay back while attacking. Of course, you want your number 6 to be very aggressive with it, yes. But for the interceptions, I've gone with it set to normal. You want him to stay back. You want him to try and, you know, if you do turn the ball over, he is in a good position to try and stifle and break up play and make sure that he's in the way of anything good that the opposition are trying to do against you. And more or less, I think cut passing lanes and stay back does do a very effective job. As for the positioning freedom, now for me, I try and be very aggressive with it. I'm trying to implement a good style of play, trying to look after the ball as best as possible. And in order to do that, the number 6 needs to be able to drop into the pockets of space, collect the ball off of the goalkeeper or the backline, and then obviously progress it forward and lay the good foundations down for a solid offense. And more or less, you want your number 6 to do so. And I think personally, Sosa has done a very, very good job so far this season. As for the defensive positioning, it's set to cover the center. Now you'll see for all my midfielders, they are going to be set to cover the center. You want to try and clog the central areas of the field, make it very hard for the opposition to create their offense. They're going to try and go down the wider channels, which is more or less what you're trying to do, and have them whip in crosses, waiting for the likes of Branthwaite, Ballard, as well as Woodman to try and, you know, get in the way, stop the crosses and whatnot. So more or less, you're trying to clog those central areas. And for your number 6 specifically, he is going to try and shield that back two more times than not. Moving on to Matt O'Reilly, of course, the more attacking of the midfield 3. So he is going to be set to get forward. So almost playing as a number 10 in that little space between the striker and the midfield. And he will obviously be a bit more of the outlet as well. He scored some crackers so far this season for us. And what a signing he has been. I've absolutely loved the signing of Matt O'Reilly. And like I said earlier with the tactics, of course, with it set to 7, you'll have at least one midfielder getting into the box. And now we've set Matt O'Reilly to be able to get into the box. Of course, he is quite tall. I think he's like 6'2". Really good at latching onto headers and whatnot and showing physicality in the opponent's box. So you want him to be able to make those runs. But every now and then, Cullen does make that lung-busting run into the final third as well. For the interceptions, it's set to aggressive. Now, this does implement the gegenpressing style, the counter press that you're looking to more or less implement, trying to win that ball back very aggressively and high up the field when required. And then for the defensive positioning, like I said, with Sosa, your midfield 3, they're all going to be told to cover the center, clogging those central areas of the field, making it very, very hard for the opposition to try and play through. The positioning freedom on the offensive side of things now, you want Matt O'Reilly or your left-sided central midfielder to try and show for the ball a bit more, pop up into those little half spaces, collect the ball, try and create with it, going forward, backwards, sideways, consistently drawing opposition players out of position, opening up a bit more space for runners to run into and try and exploit. And I think Matt O'Reilly, in terms of this role that he's in, I don't think there's a better fit in world football. On to the likes of Cullen. So for the attacking support, he will be told to stay back, offering a bit more of a defensive layer to the midfield when required, helping the likes of Sosa at a deeper rate with the build-up play going forward. For the support on crosses, yes, it is set to stay on the edge of the box, but we have seen Cullen drive with the ball into the box, score a few goals so far this season. And if you guys haven't seen the career mode, please do check that out. A little tangent. But anyway, we have seen him do a very good job at being able to recycle possession or collect the ball, work it into the space, pop shots of his own, or potentially create for others in the attacking third. For the interceptions, obviously for now, it is set to normal, but it will eventually be set to aggressive. He is coming back from an injury, so I'm trying to take a bit more of a realistic approach, not having him work too hard, you know. I always try and do things like that in career mode, but it will eventually be resolved and put back to aggressive. You want a very workhorseman-like midfield when out of possession of the ball. Cover the center, like I said, for the other two, you do need it. And then just like for Matt O'Reilly, you want him to also be able to pop up in the little half spaces, but he'll do this at a slightly deeper rate. So it is very effective. It's like a 3-layer midfield where you have your DM, your first number 8 in Cullen working in that little space between the DM and the other number 8, and then you have Matt O'Reilly working in that third little layer, generating space and pace and passes and movements, and it really works very, very well. Out to the right midfielder now, of course, Jed Wallace. He's set to come back on defense, free roam, and then come short. Now, of course, this goes hand in hand with his set of attributes, and I've adapted this specifically to him, and of course, Connor Bradley. But for your right midfielder, they aren't the quickest. Jed Wallace is not quick at all. So allowing him to drift a bit more central, link up with the midfield, it adds to his attributes of him being able to work into those finer tighter spaces and be able to create from there and then on out. And of course, come back on defense, always looking to help out their more attacking fullback and Connor Bradley. And then finally, as for the support on crosses, I've gone with it set to get into the box. You want your wingers to be able to work their way into the attacking third more times than not. And because he does come a bit more central, you can afford for him to be able to get into the box and be a bit more of a target man in certain moments, looking to try and latch onto the crosses or cutbacks, or even supply crosses or cutbacks of his own. And then for the interceptions, it's set to aggressive. As for the likes of Haksabanovic, another great signing that we've made. Obviously, last season in the Championship was at Stoke. The season before that, it didn't really work out for him. Went back to Celtic, signed him. I think it was like 5 million, and he was crazy good for us. So far this season, it's a bit more of an up and down approach, but I've liked using him nonetheless so far. But for his set of instructions, come back on defense is essential. But because the likes of Kelly will look to invert, you want your left-hand side to stay wide as well as getting behind, using his pace to try and exploit the opposition with. And then finally, aggressive interceptions, as well as having him have the ability to make those late cutting in runs, back post runs. You want him to get into the box, latch into the crosses or the cutbacks of his own, or maybe even supply for your strike. Speaking of which, your striker Sanko, up there with Woodman in terms of like the amazing signings we've made. But for Sanko specifically, I've set him to having a balanced width. Now, he is quick, he can run those channels, he can run the lanes when required, but he can also stay central and latch onto those crosses, fire in those headers, supply those runs in behind, trying to exploit the opposition as much as he can with his pace. And speaking of which, get in behind is essential. The attacking runs, you want him to use his pace and the space provided to him to try and score those goals. And I will say, very good signing. If you haven't signed or you haven't tried out Mohamed Sanko in career mode, this is your moment. This is the thing that's telling you right now, you should try him out in your career mode. For the interceptions, it's set to aggressive just with the counter-pressing, gegenpressing style of football. And then finally, the defensive support, you want at least one outlet player. And because Sanko as well as Maja are very good at doing so, they're very physical, so they can hold the ball up back into the opposition, be a bit more of an outlet ball. So that's why I've gone with them to stay forward so that they can link up play with the swift counter-attacks. Now moving on to the 3-2-4-1 system, of course, replicated after what Pep's done last season with his, crazy style of football. But this is more or less the attacking shape that we're looking to shift into. So at any time, I can shift into this shape, and the players are quite happy to do so. So basically, we've got the likes of Bradley shifting into that right midfielder, Haksabanovic shifting to that left midfielder, with Kelly inverting into the midfield. So for the formation going forward, I've gone with a 5-2-2-1, but again, it takes up the shape of a 3-2-4-1. So it's one goalkeeper, 3 centre-backs, 2 DMs, 2 wider midfielders, 2 attacking midfielders, and then, of course, 1 striker. Onto the tactics now. Nothing has really changed. I will say this. There's no major changes to it. In fact, nothing indeed. You want to try and keep the same tempo, the same style. Like I said, it's more of the shape that you're trying to go with and go for, and that's more or less what I'm trying to go with and go for. Just to try and assert ourselves more physically, dominantly on the offensive side of things. And I think the shape itself is a very offensive-based unit that you can use to try and dominate your opposition with. So onto the instructions with Woodman, still set to the same set of instructions, be a super keeper and come for crosses. It goes without saying you want to still have the same role as before. Onto your backline, however, we've got the likes of Sosa, who's dropped into that not central midfielder role, but the central centre-back role. So for him, I've set him to overlap as well as aggressive interception. So this will have him step out a bit more, have the ability to drive a bit more into the midfield, and trying to model him after another Brazilian, David Luiz. And I think he does a very good job at that. And you will see if you ever sign Vinicius Sosa in career mode, he does have the ability to play as a centre-back. So sometimes you'll see me slot him into that right-hand side centre-back role and have him be a bit more of a ball-playing centre-back in certain moments. But I think for this back three system that we're going with, I think he is like the perfect fit for what we're trying to go for. As for the likes of Branthwaite as well as Ballard, they are set to their base set of instructions as well. And even so, I think for the interceptions, I've quite enjoyed doing this over the last while, which I might incorporate. But the conservative interceptions for at least two of your back three centre backs, I think it helps quite a lot. It makes sure that they're keeping their defensive structure. It makes it very hard for the opposition to try and fit runners in between the lines, because more times than not you have your two centre backs covering potentially any space and keeping their shape, which is very hard to break down. So I'll play around with that, but for now I've just gone with the base set of instructions for your other centre backs. Into your midfield now, we've got the likes of Cullen as well as Kelly. We'll start off with Kelly. So he's set to cut passing lanes, being a bit more zonal, shielding that backline with Cullen, who will also be set to cut passing lanes. But with Lloyd Kelly, you want him to be able to drop between the defenders, picking up the ball, having Sosa and him interchange positions. That's more or less what you're going for with the attacking shape at hand. And then for the interceptions, it's set to aggressive, trying to, like I say, create that workhorse shield in front of the back three / back two in some moments, making it very hard for the opposition to try and squeeze balls between the lines, or even players in certain moments. Sometimes, like, the opposition will send runners through, and you want to be able to pick up those runners, and more or less your midfield will do so. Finally, for the positioning freedom, set to being the deep lying playmaker, being able to pick up the ball from the goalkeeper or the back line and then progress it forward. And then the defensive position, you don't want, especially in this case, you don't want them to drift into those wide areas, opening up a bit more space more centrally. They'll look like Scott McTominay did against Nottingham Forest, where he's drifting into those wide areas, and both times goals have come from the central areas of the box, just fired it at home, unmarked, unmanned, whatever. So you want your two that are sitting in front of your back three to be able to pick up the man in that space and be able to deter them from popping off shots or making it very hard for them to try and facilitate their offense. As for the likes of Cullen, also playing at a slightly deeper rate, slightly differing role as well. He's also set to cut passing lanes, but this time staying back while attacking. So the likes of Kelly can definitely get forward with Sosa, but you'll have Cullen mopping up just behind them if they do look to try and progress the ball forward. As for the interceptions, it is set to aggressive, just like with Kelly, and then just like with his midfield counterpart, Lloyd Kelly, also set to be a deep-lying playmaker, and then, of course, cover the centre. Out wide to the left and the right midfielders, they've got the same set of instructions, so there's no major changes to your flanks. As for Haksabanovic, he's set to having a basic defensive support, so he can look to come back in certain moments, but what I will say is, with this lineup, it's more of an attacking outlet. So when you do have the ball and you are playing against a lesser team, go with this. Because more times than not, your fullbacks / wide midfielders won't always look to come back. As for the chance creation, it is set to stay wide. You do want them to generate a lot of the width down the left or the right-hand channel, creating a lot of space for your inside forward / attacking midfielders. Getting in behind, though, is essential. You want both of them to try and exploit the opposition with their runs in behind. And then aggressive interceptions, just like most of your players, they'll always be set to aggressive, and that goes hand in hand with the counter press. And then finally, you want them to be a bit more attacking, so getting into the box is essential, making sure that they are making those back post runs when required, or supplying cutback opportunities for the forwards. As you can see here, for the likes of Connor Bradley, he has got the same set of instructions as well. Now onto your inside forward / number 10s. Of course, we've got the likes of Matt O'Reilly and Wallace. Now they've got the same set of instructions. You want to try and mirror each other with what they're doing, the good things that they try and do more times than not. So for the defensive support, it is set to a basic defensive support, so that sometimes choosing to come back, have a bit of a deeper starting rate with the build-up of the offense, or other times looking to hang up the field and be a bit more of an outlet ball. I will say that more naturally, Matt O'Reilly tends to hang up the field with Wallace dropping deeper. I haven't seen much of O'Reilly dropping as deep as what Wallace does when I have used this shape, but I think that throughout the course of the season, it will be a bit more, you do one thing, I'll do the other thing, and they'll alternate between the two. As for the support on crosses, I've gone with it, both of them to be able to get into the box. Of course, you are very limited with your attacking outlet, so you want your two number 10s to be able to make those crashing runs into the box, attacking those crosses, cutbacks, or even supplying it for each other. As for the positioning freedom, just like with before, you want your two number 8s, and this time your two number 10s, to be able to pop up in those little half spaces, make sure that they're always showing for the ball, collecting it, drawing players out of position, opening up space for the likes of Sanko, Haksabanovic, Connor Bradley, whoever, opening up enough space for them to try and work into an attack. And then finally, as for the interceptions, it is set to aggressive. As you can see here for the likes of Jed Wallace, he has got the same set of instructions as well. And then finally, with the likes of Sanko, he is set to stay central and be a target man. I think with this shape and this structure, you don't need him making those runs in behind. You need a bit more of an anchor man up front, supporting the attack, having a bit more of a linchpin in the attacking outlets. So having him back into the opposition, hold up the ball, link it up a bit more with Matt O'Reilly, and then having a few other players in and around him that can link up with him. I think it's a very important role, the striker role, in this set of tactics. As for the interceptions, it's set to aggressive, and then finally, just like with the balanced approach, you still want him to be the out there ball, still have him use his aggression and his physicality, backing into the opposition, linking up play, being a bit more of the out there ball when required. So yes, people, that is my West Brom career mode tactics. If you have enjoyed this video, please smash that like button. Out of 10, I don't know if I should give it a ranking or a rating, but I will anyway. Out of 10, because it's mine, I'm going to be biased. The first 10 on the channel, it is a 10 out of 10 set of tactics. I've greatly and grossly overachieved with the set of tactics, especially last season. We used a very similar, style of play, roles and whatnot. And so far in the Premier League this season, we are doing very, very well. So, I'm quite happy with it. I hope you guys do try these tactics out. And if you do, let me know down below how you have found them. And let me know about your career modes, please. I'm always interested to know about career mode. Love career mode, big fan of it, massive supporter of it over the likes of Ultimate Team and stuff. But yes, obviously the end of 2023 has been fantastic, and like I said in the beginning of the video, mad love to all of you guys who have supported the channel, recently joined the channel, been here for the long haul. It's been amazing, but all I can say is 2024, it's going to be bigger and better. So until then, until the next time, have a damn great day. Smash that like button, subscribe if you are new, and I will see you in 2024.